Hey now, good morning. Happy Thursday. Yesterday we took a big bite of Bach, right? That was a deep dive into some of his harmonies, some of his voice leadings. If you don't read music, I know I show you a staff and stuff like that. That's okay. I really want you guys to hear. That's why I try to isolate the notes and the chords, because I just want you to hear how he gets from one chord to another chord and how the notes come into something that's beautiful because it's not chaotic. So that was a little bit of how Bach, used. And who knows if he knew, he did know what he was doing, but I mean, he just was trying to make beautiful music on the organ in the church. So, and then just set the standard for all music that came afterwards. So we'll be looking at more Bach a lot just because he's the father. So, and then, it's Thursday, I'd like to kick it cool before our film screen results. And I was looking at the class that we looked at on last year, the Griffith Observatory. I think that's worth re-looking at. And I do want to mention another observatory too, just to, take a look at what's going on in our city. So let's start with the Griffith Observatory.
Hooray for Hollywood, that's gooey ballyhooly Hollywood, where any office boy or young mechanic can be a panic with just a good-looking pan.
This might be one of the most recognizable signs in Los Angeles. I mean, second to the Hollywood sign, it might be almost just as recognizable and important, and you can see it almost as well as a Hollywood sign. It is just a phenomenal building, kind of Greek revival, but Art Deco. That's the style of it. And it didn't open until 1935, which seems like a long time ago. But I mean, come on, let's get this timeline up here. We gotta see. I mean, 1935 was late in terms of Hollywood development, LA development. I mean, the Ambassador Hotel was way before anything almost. Hollywood signs 1923, so I mean it's 12 years after that. And then we looked at City Hall. Look at all these things. We've looked at Catalina last week, but these are all like in the late 20s, early 30s, and it doesn't. Griffith Observatory doesn't open until 1935, so pretty late. It took 2 years to complete, and the architects were John C. Austin and Frederick M. Ashley. And we talked about the very eccentric character, Colonel Griffith J. Griffith. Yes, first name and last name, Griffith. I mean, good thing that J's in there. He was eccentric not only for trying to kill his wife and shoot her, but for many other things. And while he was in prison for 2 years, some of these plans were going through. He wanted to build the observatory much earlier. He died in 1919, so he didn't get to see it, but he made some good deals for us, at least. I mean, in the sense of allowing this beautiful 3,000 acres or so of the land surrounding the Observatory of Los Angeles. And we talked about him a little bit because, I mean, we looked at the Greek Theater, which is right there. We looked at the Ford Theater. We're really getting to know the city. More people have looked through the Griffith Observatory telescope up there than any other telescope in the world. So that's kind of cool. I mean, that telescope up there is just so iconic. But, so Colonel Griffith J. Griffith donated about 3,000 acres. He donated the funds to build an observatory. So he didn't get to see it, but in his will it said, and an exhibit hall and also a planetarium, which is so fun. And he really wanted to make astronomy accessible to the public, which is really cool. I mean, I won't get into the telescope and astronomy because I don't know anything about that. I know that you guys thought I was really well versed in astronomy, but I'm not actually. So it was constructed with the funds from that Griffith left behind, and the observatory was given to the people in Los Angeles in 1935. And with the provision that it be operated for the public with no admission fee. That's what Griffith really wanted. He didn't want anyone to have to pay for this. And he didn't want anyone to change the name. So those were his two things. It had to be free and it had to be Griffith Park. Those were the only things. Of course, they didn't want his money in the beginning because of, he was a big drinker and then the gunshot incident and all that stuff. And he wanted to get rid of it because he didn't want to pay taxes on it. But then, after he died, they're like, okay, fine, we'll take your money. So it was one of the first institutions here in the United States dedicated to public science, and possessed the third planetarium in the U.S. So it was kind of ahead of its time for there. So that the planetarium features, such a cool. If you've never been in the theater, you sit back and look up and you see these world-class scientific. It's educational, programming kind of videos, and it's a really amazing experience. And they tell you about, the history of the universe and astronomy. So, since it opened in 1935, millions of visitors have looked through that 12-inch, so it's the Zeiss refracting telescope. And that's right on the rooftop on the building's east end. That's usually for nighttime viewing, but it's open for the general public. I don't think I've looked through it. Maybe I did, but I didn't know what I was looking at. But the telescope targets the planets, the moon, and all the other brightest places in the Milky Way. And the LA Times reported that on the opening of the gala in 1935, the crowd gasped as stars began to appear in the heavens. Then the sun arose and swung across on its orbit, followed later by the moon, with all the stars and planets completing their circuit of the heavens. So that was a quote from the LA Times when the night that it opened. It must have been so exciting for the people of LA to go up there and to, you do feel close to heaven, or a little bit, closer, because, you're on this hill. And it really is one of the best views of the city of LA. You can see everything you can see the ocean, you can see downtown. It's just, it's so much fun to be up there. So it's just a short little taste of LA history, a short little class. I don't really have any other scientific, information about telescopes or anything like that. But it's part of our city that's really, tons of movies were filmed up there. The Rocketeer is my personal favorite, but that's only because I watched it as a kid. But there's a lot of excitement just around there, and it's kind of cool. You can kind of just look up and take a look, even if you're. But yeah, it used to be free to park, but now, of course, it's $15. But it is free to walk around and go inside, and I don't know. I'm thinking field trip a lot, although I don't know if that would really happen, but let's after maybe this year we'll get to it. Okay, just a little taste of the city that we all love. So I hope you enjoyed that. That's a lot of fun. It's funny that it's free, but it's like $15 an hour to park. But Colonel Griffith J. Griffith, Alexander C. Alexander, it's like that name is hilarious. So you were probably up over winter break thinking, are only one observatory in LA? Okay, there's another one, and it's near San Gabriel Mountains. Well, it's the peak of the San Gabriel Mountains, which is near Pasadena, and we did a class on Pasadena that was well received. So Mount Wilson Observatory, just wanted a little do a kick in on another observatory, and then we'll talk about maybe why observatories are important, because I know nothing about stars or planets. Mount Wilson, so that opened in 1904. Griffith, as you just saw, in 1935. That was pretty late in LA development. Mount Wilson opened in 1904 and was really one of the best observatories in the world until 1949. So it was home to some of the biggest telescopes and a destination for a lot of scientists. We think of LA as being filled with celebrities and old Hollywood and stuff like that too, but as we've been talking about the last year, it's home to a lot of brilliant thinkers. Einstein, Caltech, people, the internet was invented at UCLA in 1968. So we're home to a lot of technology and science, which is really cool. So it just, makes where we live even cooler. So the Mount Wilson Observatory was home to a lot of destination for the world's best scientists. So we had that's part of having money, because you can build things and bring people out here. And then if you think of telescopes and music, hard to think about what could be put together. The invention of the telescope, right? It played a very important role in advancing our understanding of the universe, right? Of the Earth and the cosmos and all those kind of things. And science, but so that's looking outward telescopes, right? As artists, we look inward, right? So do we have our own telescope inside of us? Maybe is it our brain, our imagination, our creativity? Those are inward, our inner telescopes that we have. So it's very cool that LA has these, observatories and things to look out. But as artists, we look in. But looking out can inspire our inner telescope. So something to think about. Little philosophy for a Thursday afternoon. What is your inner telescope? What's your inner creativity? Where does that come from? Where does your imagination come from? Those are things we try to stress in this class. I always try to stress individuality and individual thought and the freedom of thoughts and freedom of ideas, because we're artists. That's what you guys tuned into. So, and it's always going to be a constant struggle with art and creating art, because it's abstract and it's confusing sometimes, but it's a way to connect, and it's something that we have to do, right? I mean, you don't have a choice whether you're a dancer, singer, actor, or musician. You have to do that, and that's what we do every day in the studio, whether it's virtually or in the studio. We have to do it every day. So something to think about, the inner telescope. And then tomorrow, film scoring results for Manhattan Murder Mystery. So it's going to be John Horrific and Bonnie Horrific. So, okay, see you tomorrow. Bye.